Hey, 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 what's up, good people? What is up? My name is Jamaica. You'll probably know that by now, but maybe not. My husband will be up in 2 shakes of a tail feather. We will be up here in 2 minutes. So we're just gonna have a conversation that we literally had together um, after watching a clip from the um, Women That Are Loose conference. Hey, Brandon, what's up, brother? After watching a clip from the Women That Are Loose conference. There you go. Hey, hey, hey. Say hello to the people, Dave. Say hello. So I was telling the people that tonight's conversation, we're just getting on here to talk to them and share some of our dialogue that we had together when we were watching one of the clips from the Who Art Thou from the Women Thou Art Loose finale of Bishop T.D. Jakes and oh yeah, from Bishop T.D. Jakes and how there was this pivotal moment at the end of the conference. Um, you guys can see the glare on my glasses. Sorry. There was this pivotal moment at the conference that has been gone viral pretty much, and so we had a lot of conversation about it. And so, hey, Patrice. Um, Um, let's just talk about okay. The perspective of the whole thing. I think T.D. Jakes is one of the greatest leaders ever fulfilled. I honestly think outside of civil rights, that the artist is like a great, really grand of our generation. So he's great in a lot of areas. The, the thing that I love about that um, whole video, the whole way he did it was there's so much thought into it about um, having the next generation step into play. But let's do one subject on the uh, generation of yesterday moving into their next phase, allowing the people who can lead the generation of today to be played. So with that, him doing it in a way where he mentioned not because his daughter didn't have the oil and the authorization that again in the book he would exclude it. For him to be so quiet to explain to people who would probably fight that got that role to the father. If she got the role to the father, to me, that's her father. That's her father that he built. I would say God. But we'll go deeper into when does the generation of yesterday move to their next stage that whoever's called to lead this generation. So if I could just back up with your statement though, because that was a big piece that we dialogued about when you just said like how T.D. Jakes is a master orator. Like he is a wordsmith like genius, right? And he knows how to articulate. He's a businessman. I do believe that, like you said, he is a mighty. He has created a mighty movement, and even showing us someone in the faith um, actually connecting with the marketplace. And like some people were talking about how Coca Cola is one of their major sponsors, and it's like, how is Coca Cola your major sponsor? That's a whole nother topic right there. But what when you just mentioned about if he gave it to her, like that's his daughter, that's actually a piece that I think um, is worthy of us talking about because I think that as we talk about even the
transition from generation to generation, that's been for me. I'll say that's been an area where I know the Lord has spoken to me almost recently about legacies that were not they're not supposed to be given from person to person when it's the ministry of God, when it's the call of God that's specifically called for a specific matter. It is not supposed to be handed down in the old covenant order from you to your child, because in the dispensation of Christ, it's a specific call and commission from Christ. And so it's like, well, is woman thou? I mean, yeah, woman thou loose? Is it ministry call? Is it not a church?
I don't think it's I see it, I would see it different in the Potter's house, maybe in that God has specifically told him to do
Mm,
to his daughter. But I think it's an extension of ministry. I
mm,
think the earth will still go on for some of our leaders. I think still will. I think people will find other conferences and things that they could do to get it to them involved the way he's going to do. I think him giving her his church would be a different thing because that's something I think God specifically gave them to do. I do believe God allows us to do things and to blessing be upon it because it can be things that bring glory to that bring people together
mm,
and things like that. And then I believe there are some things that God is like, I cannot let you not do. So it
mm.
would be just not in my eyes, I think in church.
Yeah,
Um, but that ministry part I don't see it where if he chose to pick her to the glory and stuff for her,
uh-huh.
I don't see that as I don't see that as a good legacy. Because legacy is really not the moment it's the thing that people hype about what they see. This is a compliment. His legacy is really his legacy is really not even about that. His legacy is really who they live. Um, we just known him for that famous festival that are elusive. I don't think it became for that reason was wrong, but the fact that he made it clear because people can't see it that way, and he didn't do that because of his daughter. I think that was him safeguarding her. I think that
Mm,
was him being like, I can take you to so people start commenting, but he just got like his daddy voice.
mm.
What they don't realize too is that he's with him for all of those years.
Yeah.
So like this is really team, he's with him all of those years. And he didn't build it alone. This is his family.
Mm-hmm.
Had to take sacrifices, had to take time with him, all those things. So I don't see that as a call. I see that in the sense I see it in the sense of what the call actually is. In my eyes, Katie did benefit with a lot of them.
That's so interesting though, because if we just if we look at the like the structure, yes, the structure will always like the church has a structure, right? Within the like how you can even create a church, right? There's a structure, even through government, like how is it tax exempt, right? All these different things. But if once you put something on it like um corporation or a for profit, right? It then all of a sudden it changes its tone. And I think that's where people are like, well, did God want? Did God tell you to build this thing, this organization, this, you know what I'm saying? Or was this, you know how they say every Christian entrepreneur is not a kingdom entrepreneur. Like,
And I think that's okay.
uh-huh,
I think that's okay
yeah,
because when he gives us our gifts, he doesn't put a limit on what they can be used for.
mm-hmm,
And he didn't say, you are only to use A, B, and C gifts.
yep,
He gives us the gifts and he kind of leaves us alone. It doesn't just multiply.
yep,
So if you multiply it through the mountain of media, which music is what Master are doing,
mm-hmm,
the mountain of entertainment, all of those things,
mm-hmm,
if you do it through those avenues, it doesn't necessarily mean God is like, you have to, you want to look, I give you the freedom to go ahead and do that because I'm the giver of the gift
mm-hmm,
and you're doing it to bring glory to me. I can bless that.
yeah,
But it's not to say that God, it's not to say that every single thing we do, and this is controversial, every single thing that we do that we're gifted to do,
Mhm.
that it has to be bringing back to the church. Like
Mm.
these movies aren't like necessarily bringing people to the Christ. They're good movies, things
Yeah.
like that, but I think God gives us the gifts that He gives us the freedom to use those gifts to multiply, and if they bring glory to Him, that He does.
Yeah. I look at the model, like we don't really know, well, what does the church look like, right? Like what we would like if you ask somebody, what is church, right? They might describe well, it's a building, or it's a place where people go on a Sunday, or they wear white ushers, and that they're gonna describe like an environment versus like what does God say the church is like, and God doesn't give excuse me, a whole lot of description after, let me say, Jesus doesn't give a whole lot of description as to what the church had to like encompass as far as like aesthetics and things of that nature. That was the Old Testament, right? Saying what the temple had to look like. But when you think about the conference, it models just like what the church looks like. So then it's almost like people. So when you go to a conference like that, they have ushers, they have offerings, they have preachers, they have pulpit. Like it's modeling what people already associate the church to be.
And this is why I say that if He gave it to her, it wouldn't be actually the follow, because what we see church to be as in the set of things, not what the church is.
Mm.
What we what we deemed it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think God gave us a good awakening. We're supposed to have it, and we could go through it.
Yeah.
Like, did the church die? No. So obviously, the church is not all those things. There's are things we can put in place if we
Mm-hmm.
want. But I think the church is what happens in Acts. When the people come together to bring glory to God's name,
Mm-hmm.
to be filled, and to go out and do good work.
Yeah.
I think that's what the church is. And if Jesus talks about edifying the people, I think what we see as the building of ushers and those study things are more so what we copy from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And we that church. Holy Spirit is exactly. That's not the church. That was the church we all would not be saved before it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we all would be back together, and we all not be able to stand God's plan because of not being able to go to the establishment. So
Mm-hmm.
I think what church is discipleship, it's development, growth, and he modeled that by saying, I disciple you enough, now it's time for you to take over. You need to go to the next place. That's what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the real struggle is more so build the generation before us go to where they're supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
To let this generation progress. And it's not a bad thing. More so at a certain age, you outgrow everything.
Yeah.
You should outgrow everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then move on to the next season, not outgrow it, stop growing. And I think that's where the rest of us got where the generation before us and our generation.
Mm. That so that actually relates to my next question or comment. Um, when we're watching the video and we're seeing this interaction with a father and a daughter, but also a bishop and a pastor, right? That's the dynamics of their relationship. Um, there's a lot of things that I was thinking um, in it, and a big piece of it was when you talk about passing on, or when you talk about um, handing things down. One of the things that Bishop Jakes said is he brought up John 3 and 30, right? And he's talking about this parallel of, well, he doesn't say it's a parallel, but he's giving it as an example to John the Baptist coming before Jesus. And John the Baptist declaring, like, I must decrease, that he increase. Um, and I want to know your thoughts on that. Like, what did you think when you heard him? Because Drew is a teacher of the word. Like, he is definitely has a gift of teaching. And so, like, what were you thinking when he was sharing that with the audience about that.
I think it's discipleship and development. I think the reason why John came was to prepare the way for Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just, we used to hear it a lot in church.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the whole meaning of that is I'm not lowering I'm not lowering who I am. I'm letting you take the place of what's needed at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And as great as Jesus is, I still think he could have won done one of our league games. He
Mm-hmm.
wanted to. He also knows yes, he created him this that place so that he could increase or someone else could increase. But it doesn't mean he's not going to increase it at some other place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It doesn't mean he's going to not. It doesn't mean he's going to decrease and stop doing other things
Mm-hmm.
in this place. So I think what he meant was, to me, it sounds like he's grown to a place of discipleship in this arena. Now it's time for you to go ahead and be teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's time for you to not have to sign on you, but it's time for you to take this torch
Mm-hmm.
and lead your generation. The same thing with Moses and Joshua. Moses died,
Mm-hmm.
but it was the same thing, or the same thing with Paul and Timothy. Eventually, you don't have the ability to keep doing that job anymore because the grace is lifted so that somebody else can get into that place.
Mm-hmm.
So him saying that he's a massive teacher, but him saying that showing scripture of a scripture of this is how you pass this baton over, this is how you pass this torch over.
Mm-hmm.
You do it with wisdom, you do it where it matches scripture. He validated it all through that talk of why she's ready, how she's been prepared,
Mm-hmm.
how he's seen her be prepared, how she's done these things. That's development.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't just say, hey, preach good, so it's time for you to go ahead and just get children tired.
Yeah.
I honestly believe he could have kept doing it if he wanted to. So he's such a master at what he does.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a place of discipleship and development. Been developed enough to do this, not because you're young into these generations. You're developed enough to these generations. You can't lead somebody if you're not ahead of them.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I've heard some commentary about that, about that scripture being used, and you know, you don't like when anyone uses an analogy of Christ, right? It's like you can use Paul and Peter, but don't use no analogy with Christ. You know what I mean? And I honestly, I took that. I didn't take it so literal. And I know sometimes people can do that, but I didn't take it as a literal, like thinking that he was Jesus and he was actually John. I didn't think it that way. I thought about the lesson of as you're saying, like, no, I have a specific assignment. Like some man water and some man plant, some man water. So I have to acknowledge I'm not the one that's next to the water, like to take you the long haul. It was in that context, it was Jesus who did the miracles, the signs and the wonders and the healing and delivering. He was the Messiah that John came to prepare the way for, that was designed by Jesus himself. Like he designed that. And how I saw that parallel as he was talking to her, I saw it as such a profound example to the church that there's a point where, and I use David all the time when David went out to fight beyond his years, and he was supposed to be now advising, overseeing, grooming and building and multiplying the skills that he had learned, but not supposed to be out there on the front anymore fighting because he had already put in them what they needed to fight these new giants. The Bible says there were new giants that had 6 fingers and 6 toes. Like these were not the same giants as Goliath. They were from his line, but not Goliath. And it's like this generation, um, yes, they still need that David to give instruction. How do I use the sword? How do I, you know what I'm saying? How do I lead? How do I do these things? Because they're like, I'm ready. Like I'm hungry. The Spirit of God is in me. I'm on the same course as you, right? But I need instruction, right? But if you won't, like Diddy Jake said, this is my last year. She was with me all this time,
Yeah.
right? And if I didn't see God, he said, this is what he said in the video, that if that God told him at Woman of Vow that she's the one, right? Now that's what he said. So all we got is that's what he said, and then now we should see manifestation of that, right? If it's what God said, and you're in right timing with God, you ought to see manifestation of what it was that God had told you to do. So that was our first piece. But then as a father, so that's the bishop and the pastor that I'm seeing. I'm saying, wow, what a way of succession. You, first of all, T.D. Jakes is a wise man. I don't know him personally, but you can see it and you can hear when he's speaking. He didn't think about this yesterday. Like,
No,
I'm sure when he first had her go up there that day one, he saw something in her, right? And that's the key to me, even as a leader, you have to be able to acknowledge when you see something in another person where you say, I want to cultivate that, right? Where you're not, what's the word I'm looking for? Not jealous, but you're not, um, yes, another word though, where you're not concerned about, okay, or you're not feeling threatened by, yeah, you're not being threatened by this gifting or something on this person, but you want to pull it out, right? And I feel like he had probably been pulling that out for years. Every time he put her up there every single year, so every single year. If people change, the roster changed, but she didn't change. She was always there. And so I'm like, what does that look like for a real leader who would actually cultivate their successor? I said a lot. I'm sorry.
I don't think most leaders are leaders.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because in a business, the whole goal of a business is to make it. Like the goal is to person like vision, like place yourself that do what you need to do. And what usually happens is people become so good at what they do that they think they're the only person to do it. And you don't have a successor who guys will do that. Right? That's the goal of a business. I do believe that's the goal of the church. Jesus is the same exact thing. I cannot be everywhere, but I'm going to die. Pick back up, and I'm going to send you a comforter who's going to be with you through all things, and all of y'all can have him wherever you're at. That's succession at its best.
Yeah.
The decreasing was I have to die, and he raised again.
Yeah.
And I got to leave. That you guys can all now benefit from what I've done. So especially with the leadership, I think a leader has to realize the person who's coming after me should be better than if they have to. Like, so when people brag about it's out throwing like they throwing further than their mentor, you're like, yeah, you have to. Like you should. Like my two daughters should be further than me and Jamaica at our age.
Yeah.
And they reach.
Wow.
Because they simply had us.
Wow.
Right. So that succession, when you think of it like that, but with leadership, the thing is most people are not leaders. They're in a position of power. So they're not leaders. Leaders do that. Simon said,
say it again.
Leaders.
Yo.
Now Maxwell is more so always talking about leaders with principles, and when people not making them. What they want to do because of what. And so, long story short, I think he has a great at succession because he loves the business. Right? And he could not run all of those businesses. He had to do all the work. That's a lesson to the church also.
Yeah.
Who's your successor? You should be planning that. Without feeling threatened that they're going to do it better than you.
Yeah.
Because they should. Because they had to.
Right.
Like, without, if Jesus had to say there was no man born of a woman greater than John the Baptist, he literally said, I could not come on earth unless John did it first.
Mm.
That's basically what he said. Like,
Wow.
I cannot do these miracles, healing. I could die on the cross. If John was to be a perfect man, he was. Not
Mm.
that John's lesser than Jesus. He had a specific role at a specific time. And when that was up, yeah.
Yeah.
You have to look at it like that instead of looking at like, how do we look, like old people said, like, I got it easy. I got Google. Like, we don't have it easy because we got Google. This is the time that we live in.
Yeah.
We also have more distractions because of that
Mm.
that y'all didn't have.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, one TV in your house,
Yep.
in the living room.
Yep.
When that TV went off, everything was shut down for the day. You had one house phone.
Mm.
You had to have texting. You had to have social media. It's not about that. More so about the question is, do I help the person coming after you have it easier? And that should be not technically about how we do it.
Yeah.
That's not successful. That's called here. We want the person to feel what you feel what you're saying. That's their
Yeah. No, this is so good. It's so good. And I don't find it happenstance that like every succession has to be a biological person. Like I'm like, is that's not just like what's the word for coincidence that everybody, in the church it's always their son or their daughter. Like
his assistant, his pastor that's going to take his place has no relation to him.
right.
So Tucker has no relation
Relation
to
to
him.
him. Yeah.
He could have picked Torre. He could have picked one of the other sons that have been longer with him in the gospel. But he heard from God that that man is going to be the next pastor. He has no relationship to him. No
Mm.
relationship to him. So it just shows you it doesn't have to be related. If it happens, that happens too. We just can't get caught up in thinking that actually God is blessed daughter.
Right.
Who at the end of the day is like, does that matter?
No, it's does she have the oil? Like you said,
You didn't have it. I would not have picked.
that's it. Are you anointed for the journey? And you know what? One area that did bless me because he began to tell her about the attacks and stuff that would come. I'm like, what person? Like I know as a mother, I'm not putting my children in line for nothing that I don't know that they're graced for. Like if I know the attacks are gonna come on your life and I don't know you got the willing for it, because it ain't because I can't I'm not there. I can't intercede for you with this type of thing. Like this standing in the seed. I can only imagine what that's like as a father, who God actually charges that father to protect that family with his life. You know what I'm saying? And so that then brings me to this last question of like, what were your thoughts when her reaction to what her father was saying to her? 'Cause there was times when you could see like the pastor and the bishop, and you saw the father and the daughter.
I think it was great. I think in real leadership, you don't tell people what they're going to face. I think they roll over. You tell them the good parts of it. So you're starting with a lot of failure.
Mm.
The reason for that is that any leadership that we're into, you're going to have critics of that. You're going to have things that happen along the way. The thing that he said that was key was I'm now going to watch them over you, and as long as I'm alive, and after that, I need to watch them as long as I live for you, which is amazing. But I think it's beautiful to tell people when they get into the role and as we do a business, you're not going to get, most likely, you're probably not going to get a business because of unemployment first. You could, right? But that's not always the case. And why is that important? To let somebody know when they start to feel like they want to give up.
Mm.
Start to feel like, all right, I have to give up because he told me that this thing that's going to happen. That's how I know he was giving her this role by God for himself. Because her father's going to want to see his daughter have to go through. He said people are going to make a career out of trying to get them. No father's going to let that just happen unless God says you take the role and how to get her, how to do this, to help her. So I think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful for leaders to tell them the things that are going to happen. And as you said before, but I'm going to be, I'm going to have your dad. God's going to do it. That's whatever. It's just beautiful. I think we can't get caught up in who it is that has at the time. And it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah. Hi, Dolores. Um, so my thoughts on seeing the father talk to his daughter and her response to him, I thought it was the ultimate showing of restoration because you can see it in these times that one of the biggest attacks of the enemy is to dismantle the relationship of a father and a family towards sons and towards daughters, and because there's such huge ramifications when that happens. And we know her story of having a child at 14 and how she was affected by that. But what her father did was he publicly restored her and affirmed her. She's standing as a 30-something-year-old woman, but that 14-year-old girl inside of her heard her father on that day say, "Listen, I see you, and this is why you're in this place, not because you're my daughter, but because of pop, 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 pop." And he began to list all of those things that he saw her as a woman. And I'm sure that she's probably over the years been challenged with wondering if she was enough, if she could do it, all these different things. And when he spoke that over her, you can almost just see like God using the words of a father to just I don't know. It was it's a powerful showing of restoration. Because sometimes we think that people know how we feel, but to actually say that in front of hundreds of thousands of people and say this is why you're here, like it. I just thought that was beautiful. I thought it was beautiful. What are your thoughts before we get off of here? Anybody on here had any thoughts about um, the woman Dara Lou's uh, transition of leadership from Bishop T.D. Jakes to Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts? There it is. I mean, when Drew and I were watching it, like we dialogued about it for a good while because there was just so much there. We laughed at some stuff. I was doggone near tears. And some stuff we were like, wow. It was like multiple reactions and feelings watching this one, circumstance occur. But it was just so powerful to see. Um, and I'm curious and intrigued to see what's to come of it because I've been to a woman diary. You've been to a manpower, right? Oh, to one of his leadership conferences, but you've been there. It's to me the experience is really about the expectation of people. Like that's when you're there, it's like, all right, yeah, you're gonna see Coca-Cola sponsor, you're gonna see, some excellence, you're gonna see a whole lot of stuff being done on a whole nother level, but the people is like that's where you're like, my God, there's who was it? Elijah, he said, Lord, it's only me alone. The Lord was like, no, it's not. It's a whole bunch of others out here. And to be in another place, a place where you come with expectation to hear from God and to experience Him and to go deeper into Him and other people are the same. That's my prayer for what's to come for whatever it is that Pastor Terry Jake Roberts said. Let me see. Come on, Tawana. I thought it was powerful. I love how he acknowledged how it was time to pass the torch. Some pastors going to hold the torch until they are in wheelchairs. So it was great to hear him say it and do it in front of the world. I agree, Tawana. We you ain't gotta be in a wheelchair, man. Like, come on. You can barely remember stuff. That I think so. Let me say this: I do not believe that there's a such thing as retiring from the call. I think that because we're talking about the call, the fivefold ministry of call of Christ, which is one is the pastor, right? How can you retire from a call that you retire from something that you initially came into? You didn't come into the call. The call was already predestined for you by Jesus Christ Himself before you were even born. There was an appointed time for it to occur. But your position and how you move within that call is different. I believe an 85-year-old woman who was called to be a pastor will continue to have the heart of a pastor to the day that she passes. She will continue to care for the people, continue to think on the people, continue to call on people. She's just not running nobody's church. It's a place of overseeing. She's the one who's now giving pearls of wisdom that everybody just goes sit and they want to talk with Mama such and such, who used to be a a functioning day to day pastor of a church, but the call didn't change. That's really what I believe. I don't know if anybody has something to say contrary, but that don't mean you got to be at that church at 85 years old, can't hardly breathe, and you're barely living because you done wore yourself out. The function and operations, and that's one thing I do believe that we have to learn that in our culture. I think it's cultural for us to go to the grave with a hammer in our hand, and that ain't. I don't believe that. The Lord said, I think what He did open the eyes of many. Took a lot of courage. Mm, I agree, Lord. I agree. It took a lot of courage to do that. But I'm sure, like I said, T. Jakes is a yo. He's a master orator too. He's like, I'm sure he knew exactly how this was gonna flow. Ah, any last thoughts, friends? Oh Lord, listen, the general is tapping out. I felt the tap out on my shoulder. But thank y'all for joining us tonight. We just wanted to have some dialogue, conversation about, just what we saw, what we felt, what we were thinking, and also, we love having 21st century conversations. Like, what does this mean? What is Christ talking about in this day and age? His word doesn't change, but how he actually does things and utilizes us, it does change. And so that's what we did tonight, and we hope you were blessed. That's sitting here talking with the cost, real talk, and be on the lookout for more to come from us. So God bless you guys, and the bishop speaking. All right, y'all. Peace.